Daily Helmsman.
Hey, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you today?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Trying to get a lot of stuff done, but I saw your message and I figured, you know what? See what's going on.
All right. Thank you for your time.
No worries.
I wanted to ask you a few questions about the flat Earth theory.
Flat Earth.
That sounds good.
I'm not sure what you're talking about. This flat Earth thing. I haven't heard of it.
Um,
Totally kidding. Totally kidding. How did you find my name, by the way?
on the Flat Earth Society website, I went to your YouTube page, and it sent me to your YouTube page, and I saw your video with the CNN article about Kyrie Irving in it.
Oh, right. Right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. The Kyrie thing kind of blew up. None of us were expecting that.
yeah. I don't think no one was really.
No, but I mean, but we really weren't because after the BOB thing happened last year, we are thinking, okay, who's the next person going to be? Wouldn't have thought it would come out of sports, but it does make some sense because a lot of the sports guys, especially when you're doing huge amounts of road trips like basketball and baseball players, they got a lot of time on their hands.
Yeah.
So they would be looking into, YouTube would be a big favorite of those guys, and that's where we are most of the time. Still there?
It was kind of the next person to kind of blow up.
I'm sorry, what? Say it again?
I was just looking at the what is it called? The description in the below in the video or in your video, and I was looking over it again and writing down what you were saying.
Oh, got it, got it. I mean, there's a lot of material out there. I mean, let's put it this way, if you're coming in from the outside and haven't even touched this theory, there's so many different roads you could go down with this. But I'm glad that you called me because I know just about everybody in the community at this point.
Also, you're very involved in the Flat Earth Society.
Oh, but well, not the society as much. The society isn't as big as the general YouTube community. The society had been doing its thing for all the way up until about 2014. And then really what happened, I mean, most of the people that are on YouTube doing this aren't really involved in the society. So everyone's kind of doing their own thing, but I mean, there's no one group. It's generally just a big collection of YouTubers that have been putting out independent research.
Okay. So the YouTube community sounds like it's a lot bigger than the actual society
Oh,
because it
way
seems that.
way bigger, way 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 bigger. Society's nothing by comparison because the society, I mean, honestly, this thing didn't really ramp up until the end of 2014, the beginning of 2015 for reasons unknown. Who knows? Maybe it was just the internet hive mind was just kind of picking up on things, but it really started escalating in 2015, and then the beginning of 2015, the whole Bob Neil deGrasse Tyson thing, and it's just been growing by leaps and bounds to the point where it's if you go into any search engine and you just type in the Earth is or Earth is, the first thing it's going to come up is flat. And we didn't even try to do that. That was just a side effect of the community. So it's been amazing so far. And but anyway, sorry, I'm rambling. I could go on about this forever. What general questions you got? Because I'm sure you got a bunch.
There's just a bunch of general questions. Well, you brought up the Neil deGrasse Tyson thing. How did you feel about that, and how did you kind of respond to the well? He responded to BLB. What were your responses to his responses? Because he
Well,
backed his with evidence.
well, here's the thing. When Bob came out, he came out with some great stuff. He was quoting a lot of different people in the community, and when Neil deGrasse Tyson came out against him on Comedy Central at the beginning of last year, it was strange because I didn't think he brought his best, the whole Tiger Woods, bring your A game. I don't think he
Yeah.
brought his A game. He didn't bring any videos, he didn't bring any graphics, any pictures. He just talked about the horizon. If you go up high enough, no person, no civilian can see the curvature. You have to be up in space to see it. but the way he was describing it was losing people. So, I mean, he spent like 6 or 7 minutes doing this, and I was going, shoot, I could have done it in 3 and been more convincing than he was. So it was disappointing, and but we can't get a debate with him. He will not debate. Most people don't know this about Tyson is that he won't debate anybody. He's never been in a debate in his life. He's just
About
he goes out, he does speeches, and he leaves, and he will not. It's not that he won't just debate flat Earth. He won't debate anybody about anything. So you'll never see him go up against a Christian panel on God versus science, stuff like that. So, but yeah, he is our probably our number one enemy at this point because he's the spokesperson for science. That's he you know he's literally, in fact, people tie him almost directly with NASA, and when anything in space happens, he always puts a quote out about it and always tweets it. And plus he runs a planetarium, the Hayden Planetarium.
hmm
So yeah, we don't like him. Let's put it that way. In fact, it's gotten so bad that we won't even call him by name. Uh,
What
we
else?
we we only call him by his initials now. That's the trend that's going through. Now we call him NDT because we just can't. He's probably the only guy that because there's a flat Earth convention coming up in North Carolina in the fall, and he's probably the only guy that could show up that would actually be in danger because
Wow.
we hate him so much. He's just awful. Again, I mean, I'm sure he's a nice enough guy in real life, but the stuff that he makes statements that just drive us insane. Like his most famous quote is, and he's not shy about saying this on CNN and wherever else he can, which is science is right whether you believe in it or not. It's like, dude, there are so many things I could pick apart with that, but that's fine. That's his stance. I know that's his role, but at the same time, he is our nemesis right now.
How did you get it? How did you first find, the theory? How did you first get into it?
I got into it back in the summer of 2014 because, like a lot of the people that are in it, you are into other conspiracies. You look up stuff, like 9/11 or Boston bombing or JFK or Pearl Harbor. Take your pick. Doesn't really matter. And every conspiracy person knows about the flat Earth. It is the last book on the shelf. It is the movie you never are going to watch. Everyone hates it. And I was dumb enough to look at it. I said, you know what? I'm just going to, because if you're a conspiracy guy, there's some things you believe in and some things you don't. And some things she's like, you know what? I can disprove this thing in a weekend. And so I sat down and looked at it because there was a German guy who had posted something. It said the flights in the southern hemisphere, they don't look right. He goes, they're really odd. He goes, all the connections, you fly anywhere from like South America to Africa to Australia, anywhere down there, he goes, the connections are really weird. They go way up north and then they come back down. There's almost no nonstops to speak of. But then he ended it with, he goes, it only makes sense if the world was flat, those flights would make sense. And I go, okay, that's interesting. That's fine. I don't buy it, but it's still interesting. And then I ran into another story about a guy, a Canadian artist out of Montreal, Canada, who said that he was a contract artist for NASA and that he was told during a kind of a social event, a Christmas party out on the East Coast of the United States, where NASA holds some of its Christmas things, that GPS doesn't work out in Antarctica because it's flat. And he didn't get it. And it was a really spooky story the way he told it. And he wasn't trying to be spooky. And so it's like, okay, this is a good story, but there's got to be a way to disprove this. So I sat down and I hammered on this for, I don't know, 8 months, maybe 9. I mean, months, just, off and on, just kind of, while I was doing my other things, I was like looking at this, trying, okay, I should be able to wipe out flat Earth. And not only was I not shutting down flat Earth, but I was having a much more difficult time proving the globe, to where about February of last year, I'm sorry, February 2015, I said, okay, how exactly do I know it's a globe? And decided, okay, I just made a series of videos called Flat Earth Clues, and I put them out on the internet, and I said, prove me wrong. Somebody in science shut this thing down. There's got to be a way to disprove flat Earth. And I really, honestly, truly believe that I was missing something, and that some scientist, somebody from academia, would come forward and end it right there. And instead, it was the opposite. Not only did nobody challenge me on it, from a high level, astronomy, astrophysics, whatever, you take a pick. But then I started having subject matter experts come out on my side, all branches of the armed forces, structural engineers, industrial engineers, pilots, flight controllers, airline mechanics. You take your pick. Anyone that had to do with transportation, and they all kept telling me the same thing. They're going, you know what? We've all heard, we all know that it's a sphere, right? Everyone knows this. It's absolutely, we're told this every day since we were 5 years old. But nobody uses the applications. Nobody uses the math in real life. It's not used. In fact, every pilot knows when they go up there. Of course, when the pilot looks out the window, it looks flat, but it can't be flat because you're told it's a sphere when you're in kindergarten. So there's this real paradox. And then it just started getting worse. Then all of a sudden, a radio show person called me up and said, "Oh yeah, how would you like to do a podcast radio show thing every Tuesday?" Okay, fine. So I did a podcast. Then a book company out of London called me and said, "How would you like to turn your clues into a book?" Okay, fine. I didn't call anybody. People just kept calling me. I've done, I don't know, 110 interviews already from different places, just all over. The people just been every walks of life have been calling me wanting to talk about this, and that's how I really got into it. And I've never looked back. But it was definitely not something I wanted to do, not by any stretch. And nobody wakes up. That here's the one thing. If you want to, this is kind of important, and that is nobody in the flat Earth community, and I mean nobody, starts out thinking it's a great idea. Everybody tries to disprove it. In fact, the T-shirt could probably read, "I became a flat earther because I tried to debunk flat Earth." Everybody tries, and they watch other people fail. And it's like, well, that guy's obviously an idiot. He did it wrong. I can disprove flat Earth. And then all of a sudden they become a flat earther. It's like it's not to use too many like negative connotation words, but it's like a virus in some ways, because the average person cannot prove that it's a globe. Not for sure. I mean, even you, not because I'm not going to convince you in this phone call. But when did you know it was a globe? Did you know just because you had one in your classroom for 12, however long you were in school, and if God help you, if you got your master's and your PhD, then you're doomed. In fact, astronomers and astrophysicists, there's nothing they can do. They're stuck. So yeah, that's how I got into it. Sorry, kind of my long ramble. I do this a lot.
Nah, it's cool. It's cool. I don't really mind. It's good.
The what?
Nobody believed that the Earth was flat until they tried to debunk it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everybody in the community tried to debunk this. And some people, they give up in a couple days. Other people take a couple weeks. I've seen people make videos against flat Earth, literally have YouTube channels where it's like, they'll make like 4 or 5 videos. It's like, flat Earth sucks. Flat Earth is stupid. Flat Earth is ridiculous. And then all of a sudden, for no apparent reason, they'll say, you know what? That flat Earth isn't a terrible idea. And which is why the Kyrie thing, when I was listening to his interview when he was on that plane on the way to the All-Star game, I knew exactly his frame of mind. Because he was saying the exact things that I've heard in the community over and over. How do you know? It's like, because of the pictures, because of NASA, because NASA didn't even, wasn't even formed until the 1950s, but we supposedly have known for 500 years. So how did we know before NASA? And the answer is, well, because science told you. That's like, ooh, that's a tall one, because then you go into this weird question, which is, let's say science has been preaching the globe for 500 years, which they have been. Let's say they finally got a device, a rocket. They finally, in the 1950s, went up high enough to see what the world looked like. If they were wrong, would they tell everybody? And I hate to say it, but I wouldn't, if I was them, I wouldn't tell people. What are you going to do? Announce to people? It's like, oh yeah, by the way, that whole globe thing, gone. It's done. No. You can't. You can't because it puts science in a really bad position. The science has to protect their own, like every other institution. So science of it, like for example, let's say they did admit it. You say no, they might admit it. It's like okay, fine. You were wrong about the globe. What about that whole evolution thing? How do you feel about that now? Because you were wrong about the globe. How about the Big Bang theory? And you just keep going. I mean, science would be backpedaling for years. It would undo so much, so many things. So I understood their decision. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still, science is scientism, I should say, is kind of our enemy here. But at the same time, I understand why they did it. It was an easy decision to make. They said, okay, we're going to hold on to this thing, and we're going to see how long we can keep it going for how many years? 60 years. So we figured they found out for sure in the mid 1950s, and then they decided they were just going to lock everything down and seal off Antarctica, seal off space. Nobody goes there, and it's worked really well up until now.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. It's something about. Let me see if I can find the exact question I wrote down. With Antarctica, you can't fly over it.
Oh man, Antarctica is a no go zone. And again, this is one of those little things that's overlooked. There's something out there called the Antarctic Treaty, and you don't. It's no secret. You can look this up. It was formed in 1959, the same year the Van Allen radiation belt was discovered by NASA. And what it says is that no country, no matter how much money, no matter how powerful your corporation is, can go down and set up shop in Antarctica for any reason ever. And I mean ever. It's the only treaty of all time that's never been broken. And it started in 1959, and it's not even up for debate until 2041. And you know full well the very least the petroleum companies. Let's say you're the president of Exxon, right? And Admiral Byrd, we know there's resources down there because Admiral Byrd came back, went on national television, and said, "Oh yeah, the place is loaded with resources." But Exxon can't go down there because of the Antarctic Treaty. Not only are they allowed not to go down there, but they aren't even allowed to talk about it. So you'd think like if Exxon wanted to go do drilling down there, all they have to do is, if they want to, they lobby people or I don't know, run a full page ad in the New York Times and say how great it would be for jobs for us to go to the Antarctic. They're not even allowed to do that. It is absolutely sealed off. Now, that being said, if you yourself want to go down to Antarctica tomorrow, you could book a flight for, I don't know, $10,000, maybe 15, and you could go down to the peninsula, have your picture taken with penguins, and that's fine. The individuals can go down there. Every individual goes down there is completely monitored. You cannot just pick up and say, "Oh yeah, I'd like to charter a helicopter and just go flying off into the snow." That won't happen. That's the reason why the corporations aren't allowed down there. There's something down there, and for us, it is. I wouldn't say the edge, but maybe the end. Some sort of barrier is down there. Something is so big that every country in the world signed a treaty that said that not only is nobody own Antarctica ever, but nobody, no corporation, no matter, will ever go down there. It's unheard of in our civilization. Money, greed, power, they rule the world, but that place is off limits. And they can say what they want about environmentalism and all that other crap, but this was 1959 when that treaty was put in place. Greenpeace wasn't even
Yeah.
founded until the 1970s. This is something bigger than money, and that was just the Antarctic part.
So you think they're just hiding the truth to keep people from questioning science?
I'm all right. Say it one more time.
You think they're just hiding the truth to keep people from questioning just science in general?
Questioning. I'm sorry.
Science,
Que- Questioning. I'm sorry. Time or signs?
science.
Oh, science. Well, okay. Science. Look, I've got nothing wrong with general science. I don't. They've given us great things. Light bulbs and air conditioning and microwave ovens. That's fantastic. And the military applications, fine. They're paid to do that. The scientists. You have to hire scientists to come up with stuff like nerve gas and napalm and atomic weapons. But that's part of the military. That's a whole separate thing. I'm not saying that science is bad. What I'm saying is that science has kind of turned into its own pseudo religion, like a lot of things. Meaning, science has an obligation for the benefit of humanity, and they seem to have taken an all or nothing approach. Meaning, we are science. Religion has no part in our world. You know, the big rift between science and religion. But science has taken liberties which they probably shouldn't have. And the question, you know, could there be a bigger picture here? Sure. I mean, if you read enough sci-fi novels, you could say, well, maybe we are in a snow globe, and the aliens told them that you know, don't tell anybody, that, you know, just go along with this whole spherical Earth and solar system thing, and don't let anyone know that it's a planetarium. And it's like, all right, that's fine. But either way, we've run into a place where science is the barrier, because we're the ones that saying, we say, okay, you're making, okay, I'll give you a perfect example here, and that is, because I did this in one of my videos where I said science tells you exactly what the entire core of the earth looks like. If you believe in science, it takes you 4,000 miles to get to the center of the earth, and they can describe every layer going down to the center of the earth, right? But they've only drilled down 8 miles. That's the deepest hole ever drilled. So how exactly do you know what's down the center of the earth? And they'll tell you in Wikipedia. It's like, well, we're extrapolating. Basically we're taking guesses. It's like, okay, so you're taking guesses, but the textbooks still say that the core of the earth is these, or, you know, it goes from red to orange to yellow to white. So, but you're not, so because science doesn't ever want to put a question mark in a science book. That's not what their job is. Their job is to give people answers whether or not they know for sure or not. And
Yeah.
when they make those assumptions, well, you know, what if you're wrong? You know, are you willing to look at it differently? And science has been very, very stubborn about that for a number of years now. There's some things which they've never questioned, and this is the biggest one, which is what I said to you earlier, and that was, if they're wrong, science doesn't like admitting it now. It's the Raiders of the Lost Ark syndrome, the movie with Indiana Jones, that first one,
Yeah.
where the Ark of the Covenant is you know, it's captured by the Americans. The whole movie is about getting the frickin' Ark. But what happens to the Ark at the end? It is put into a crate, is put into a warehouse, and nobody ever knows it was ever there, because the Ark goes against science. If anything goes against science, it is hidden, it is buried. So is science the enemy? They are an enemy, but only because they protect their own, like anybody else. No different than if some guy, and we've heard the stories, you know, if some guy came up with an engine that ran on seawater, the oil companies would either bribe him or kill him. That engine's never coming out, because the oil companies. If there's a better gem out there than a diamond, the diamond companies are going to find that guy and buy him out or kill him. It's just, that's how you know, corporations work and institutions work. Cubic zirconia, the fake diamond, that is owned by the diamond companies now. They didn't invent it, but they were watching it very carefully. And once it started selling as well as it did, it's like, you know what, we're just going to buy the whole thing out anyway. Same thing with science. They, in this case, they're protecting their own, and they've done a great job of it so far. But it looks like it's time coming to an end.
Yeah, times are changing with that because it's hard to hide stuff now.
But what?
I said it's hard to hide stuff now
Oh yeah,
nowadays.
well yeah. I'll give you another one. Because and I don't want to diminish this in any way, but like, we all know that there are websites out there dedicated to finding movie mistakes, right? If you make a $200 million movie, there are nerds out there at 3 in the morning that will find every single mistake in your movie. If a coffee moves from one side of the room to the other and nobody moves it, they're going to document it. That happens now. We've been analyzing the entire, and not just the flat Earth community, but the internet has been analyzing just about everything when it comes to space, and it's horrible. They made so many mistakes, it's hard for us to even keep track of them all, which is why like the Orion program, which is the Mars program. You want to look up something interesting, look up the video that's on the NASA website right now called Orion Trial by Fire. It's like 7 minutes. They made it for television, and it basically says that, oh yeah, by the way, the first capsules we're going to send are going to be unmanned because we haven't figured out how to get through the Van Allen radiation belts yet. And I mean, they say it exactly like that. I'm going, what are you talking about? That you just made that video in 2014. You got through the Van Allen belts in the 1960s. Not only that, you sent guys round trip to the moon and back. Here's a question for, again, I could go on forever, but here's a question for you, just a simple question.
Mm-hmm.
How did the astronauts get to the moon and back? And I don't mean with the rockets. I mean, how did they get past the Van Allen radiation belts? You can ask NASA this all day long. You can send them emails, make phone calls. They will never answer this question, which is, what shielding did you use to get past the radiation? They will not tell you. It's like, well, because there can only be one of two things. It can be lead or it can be gold. That's it. You know, gold is twice as dense as lead. They'll never ever talk about it. It's incredible the amount of omissions that are out there. You know, the fact there was no picture, you know, only one picture of the Earth ever taken from 1972 up until the summer of 2015. No videos of the Earth rotating with the weather morphing at the same time. No videos of any time lapse thing. No videos of the ISS being built in time lapse of any quality. No video of anybody actually, of any rocket leaving or entering Earth's orbit. These are all things we've assumed. That's the part that's worked so brilliantly, is that we've assumed them all. We all watch science fiction movies. We all watch the television shows. We filled in the gaps ourselves. NASA didn't have to do anything. They literally ran the same picture for 43 years and nobody noticed. It was incredible. So when we found it, it was like, oh man, this is not good. Sorry, that's my I do these rants all the time, so stop me if I'm going kind of. And by the way, if you want a recording of this, I just happen to notice I have the calls actually recorded. So if you want a copy, I can send it to you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, sure. Just email me. Just do you have my email address? It's on the description of every video.
Yeah, emailed you earlier trying to get into contact with you, but I'll email you again for the recording.
Well,
Be
it's automatic because this machine goes through Skype. In fact, let me make sure it's still in there. Hang on. Yeah, it looks like it's working. I think it's gonna work. So, but yeah, if you email me and say, oh yeah, by the way, I called you about blah blah blah, I'll shoot it to you.
Okay, cool.
Because I know I'm talking a lot of stuff here.
I'm getting it down the best I can. So
That's all right.
yeah.
Again, you know, that's why I record quite a bit of this stuff, is so that you're not the first. And it's like, hey man, do you remember what we said? Blah 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 blah. I was like, yeah, I got it.
Cool. I wanted to ask you about some of the questions. You know, people always like try and debunk it, but like, what am I trying to ask? What is on the edge of the earth? Like those type of questions. If
That's
it's not
treated.
round, if it's not fair.
No. If as far as exactly what it looks like, well, the jury's still out on exactly what it looks like because there's two camps. One thinks it's like a dinner plate, you know, that it's built like a dinner plate with the North Pole at the center of the dinner plate, and that at the edge of the dinner plate there's just more plates or a big landmass that it goes on for a long time. The group that I'm in, that I really push, is that there is a firmament that, you know, like it was mentioned in Genesis. It's like a snow globe where there's a barrier over the top of us, like a dinner plate with a cake lid on top of it, and that we're basically living in a giant planetarium, a terrarium, a Truman Show, and that everything in the sky is just a display system, and it really does fit. I mean, the Truman Show, if you remember that Jim Carrey movie from the late 90s,
Yeah.
you know, I postulated, is it possible, you know, Truman was convinced he lived in that seaside community, which in truth was he was in a Hollywood studio. If you could make that studio big enough, and I'm not saying we built it, I'm saying the creator built it, But if you could build a studio big enough, could you convince an entire civilization anything you wanted? And I believe, yeah, you could. Eventually, they were going to figure it out. There's only so long you can figure out because technology and once you get engines like the internal combustion engine, once you get planes, and that's really what happened because the powers that be apparently were looking for it since the 1920s. With Admiral Byrd, they were looking at it in 1926, and then he was down in the South Pole, or I'm sorry, the Antarctic, for 30 years up until his death, and almost didn't find it. He almost gave up, and I think everyone almost gave up. They had the maps, but they couldn't prove it. So yeah, a snow globe, Truman Show, terrarium, planetarium, a sports stadium, for lack of a better term. That's what it is. You're inside a giant enclosed structure with a roof that doesn't have to be that high. Yeah, a couple hundred miles at very least, but that's more than enough. Most of our civilization lives from just 0 to 5,000 feet, and planes cap out at about 10 miles. Spy planes maybe 20 miles. It's pretty easy if you have the tech to do it. If you can build structures that are massive, it can be done. And it sounds like a Twilight Zone episode, but honestly, when you think about it, you think about all the great science fiction stories that have been written over the last 100 years. There was a good chance that one or two of them were going to be right. They were going to be more truth than fiction. And in this case, I mean, there's been Twilight Zone episodes based off of this. Again, movies based off Dark City, Truman Show, the television series Under the Dome, the Simpsons movie. What was that based on? They covered the city in a dome. There's been a lot of weird domey things over the last 10, 15 years. So,
Yeah. What else is another one? What about time zones and like seasons? What is the explanation for that?
what was I heard seasons. What was the first one?
Time zones.
Spell it.
Time
Oh, time zones.
zone.
Sorry, time zones. You got to remember that you're coming in through a phone line, so it's not super clear on my side. The time zones are okay. Time zones are easy because you got to give up the entire solar system model. So if it's a planetarium, that means the sun is way, 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 way smaller, and so is the moon, by the way. And it's probably a directional light source. So the moon or the sun isn't this omnidirectional light bulb. It's kind of like a spotlight. It doesn't have to be. It's not shining all the places at once because it's not very big. If it was very, very big, sure, but it's not. It's probably less than 50 miles across, roughly, which is still pretty big, but it's not that big. And it moves around the top of us like a needle on a record player or a mobile above a child's crib. Same thing with the moon. The moon's about the same size, which shouldn't surprise anybody because the moon fits exactly in front of the sun, which is a wonderful coincidence that it's 400 times less diameter, but also 400 times closer than the sun, supposedly. But oh yeah, I'm sorry. In the seasons, no different than again a record on a record player. I don't know how old you are, but as as the needle goes in and as the needle spins around, it also goes in and out. So the sun doesn't take the same path across the sky. So when it's traveling around, or I should say above us, it's taking a slightly different path every day, and as far as seasons go, yeah, it's helping a little bit with the warmth, but there's also other heating systems involved, which the jet stream, which is in the upper atmosphere, the underwater conveyor system, which is a huge heating mechanism in the ocean, the magma system, which is underneath that. So it's not the only heating system in town, but yeah, the seasons because it's moving in and out.
Like everything covered. If you had one question you could ask any scientist at NASA, what would you ask them?
Assuming they knew something, let's say I was going to ask Tyson a question. Let's say in fact, it wouldn't be a question for scientists because there's people above. I don't think 99.9% of scientists don't know anything about this. But if there was a scientist that knew, I think I think it'd be just a direct question. and that is what exactly is the shape of the Earth. If they knew, because the rest of it is just there's too small of pieces that we've already worked out most of the details. I just asked them the direct question, but it's an interesting one that you brought up because nobody's actually asked me that. Most of science would have to be again, most science doesn't know anything about this at all. Pilots don't know anything. Most of the military doesn't know it. And NASA, I had one of like the NASA garage mechanics live right next door to me, and he didn't know jack about anything. Only the telemetry guys at NASA need to know stuff. That's all, all the wrench turners, they don't know anything. So when people say one of the big arguments is, well, you need so many people to keep it quiet, it's like the Manhattan Project. Well, no, 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 no. With something this big, almost nobody knows because you're living in it. You wouldn't, in fact, one of the only groups that seem to have known, not to go off on a tangent here, were the Apollo astronauts. I don't think any astronaut after Apollo knew anything. So the astronauts are faking everything, of course, but they don't know why they're faking it. It's above their pay grade. They sign the disclosure agreement and they're told, okay, you're going to be faking this. They aren't even allowed to ask the question why, because it weighs on your conscience too much. I think it's too big of a weight on your shoulders. Anyway,
Alright, let me see what else is there. So, what about the space trip to Mars? Do you think that is this gonna be fake too?
oh, look, and I know don't I'm not picking on you in any way, shape, or form here. You got to remember that you got to give up everything when it comes to everything that any space program has ever told you. I'm not just saying that NASA lied about the moon missions. I'm saying the only reason NASA was created in the first place was to keep this thing a secret. They militarized space. People forget. It's like, well, they wear white uniforms and they smile and they don't carry guns. I go, yeah, but NASA is DoD. They are the Department of Defense. Their technology is uniquely military. They're based on the remnants of the Nazi war machine. Hell, NASA wouldn't even have existed if it wasn't for the Nazis. Those are all the scientists that they brought over from Germany. So when it comes to Mars and everything else you see, Mars, every story that you see on the news, it all has the same subtext. The rest of it is different though. So let's say, oh look, here's a picture of Pluto. Here is a face on Mars, maybe. Here's a hexagon, a weird cloud thing on the top of Saturn, and so on and so on. It doesn't matter if you believe in those things or not. All they care about is you look at it. Because what you're doing is you're saying, okay, I'm looking at Pluto because I'm on a globe. There's a face on Mars maybe because I'm on a globe. Saturn, globe, 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 globe. They don't care if you even spend 2 minutes looking at that story as long as you look at the story. So no, the Mars program's never, ever, 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 ever going anywhere because we've gotten too good at finding mistakes. You cannot make a movie nowadays, and I challenge anybody, you cannot make a major movie nowadays without making mistakes because it's all shot out of sequence. That's how the Mars program would have to work. You'd have to fake it, no different than the moon stuff. You'd have to shoot it out of sequence. I joked with people. I said, look, if the government came to me and they said, look, you have an unlimited budget and you can hire anyone you want from Hollywood to help you, would you help us fake the Mars mission? And I'd be like, no, there's no way I'd even try because all it takes is one guy at 3 in the morning in the middle of Kansas to find the find one of the production mistakes. And that's it. You're done. You're blown. There's nothing you can do. So no, the Mars program there's a reason why they're kicking the can down the road every year. Oh, Elon Musk. Oh, we're going to colonize Mars. My ass, you're going to colonize Mars. You're not going anywhere. Plus, not to mention, even if the solar system was real, you can't solve the fuel problem. Which is it's a one-way trip, even if you could go there, which you can't. So how the hell is his stock price keep going up when he says we're going to colonize Mars? It's because it's artificially inflated. The rockets are going nowhere. The ISS, there's nobody living up there. There never was. We're coming up on the 20-year anniversary, and there is a single piece of video footage showing a rocket going up there. You have a rocket going up. About 50 miles, it fades to black, and then 3 hours later, you see somebody smiling in the ISS. It's awful. It's just terrible.
This goes way deeper than just
Oh, you didn't
influence.
know? I know. I did. Look, man. Trust me when I say this. I get emails every week, and they're always the same ones. It's like, look, mind blown. This can't be. Yeah, it's like my whole world has changed. I go, I know, right? I was literally banging my head on the keyboard for days, just going, this can't be happening. Everybody knows the world is what we're told it is, but that's the great line. I'll give you a great one. Here's a good quote. There was a movie some years ago by M. Night Shyamalan called The Village, where a bunch of parents who were tired of domestic violence, rich people, bought a big wildlife preserve and raised their kids in it. But when they raised their kids in it, they created a town that was from the 1800s, kind of like an Amish type thing. And the kids growing up literally thought they were living in the 1800s. The question is that why would the kids ever doubt that? Why would they? The line from the Truman Show is, we believe the world that is presented to us. And for us, we've been shown the globe. That's all we've been shown. We've been shown a model in the classroom, and everybody says the same thing. People get so you should read the comment sections. People get really, really angry, angrier than any other topic, which is odd. You'd think that like abortion or black rights or stem cell research or gay rights or women's rights, you'd think that get people worked up. No, no, no. This is the topic that gets them bent out of shape. They don't even know why they're mad. They're mad because it's the only thing that you can't run away from. You have to deal with it one way or the other. You either say, nope, not buying it, science is absolutely correct, or I am buying it, and I'm in real trouble because now I'm not going to sleep for 2 weeks. That's that's what, and I hear the same story over and over and over again. They don't, no one knows what to do with it because nobody's on the fence on it. It's the most polarizing topic I've ever seen, and it's, which is silly because it's ridiculous, right? Everyone knows it's ridiculous. So when Kyrie did his thing, watching him get attacked, I mean, that one, in fact, the one reporter that went after him, I loved it because that reporter was doing exactly what I thought he would do, and that is his lines were like, "Look, you have an obligation to your fans." Basically saying, "Look, you have millions of people that listen to your words. Why are you telling them something that isn't true?" And he's going, "It's like, how do you know it's not true? How do you know?" And then it starts degrading from there. So happy that he did it. I don't know how long he's going to be able to. Although he's in the middle of agents, from what I understand. If he was in really good terms with his agent, he may not have done it. But and happy that LeBron jumped on it for a brief. LeBron didn't call him nuts, which was awesome.
Yeah, he did.
Anyway, anything else you want me to throw at you? And by the way, feel free if
Uh,
you want me to talk to anybody else. I am, this is what I do. I've given up everything at this point for the last 2 years, and this is what I've been doing, even though I do not want to do it. Honestly, I really thought and hoped that some scientist. I think I'm debating a scientist from England on Thursday or Friday. It's like, what are you gonna do? What question are you gonna ask me that I haven't heard 100 times already? There's nothing you can do. I mean, there's too many inconsistencies from the space program side, and there's too many questions that can't be answered, and that's where we are. It's like, look, help us because we're dying here. We're actually going to do a convention, first time 500 years, flat Earth convention, international, people flying in from all over the place. Now, I'm not
when
even
is
I'm not even doing it.
who's doing it? Who's Do you know who's making it?
Yeah, yeah. It's done by a guy named it's a Christian guy on YouTube. His YouTube channel is called Celebrate Truth.
Celebrate Truth.
Yeah, you'll see it when you go to his channel. His name's Robbie Davidson, and he's a great guy. And he contacted me. He goes, "Hey, how would you like to be the keynote speaker at the lunch on the first day?" I said, "Totally. I'm all over that." I'm not kidding you with this. We're even doing Flat Earth Video Awards show on the second night. That's how freaky it's getting. There's songs. There's like 200 Flat Earth songs that have been made from folk and rap and electronic and reggae, all this stuff. When does that happen? You see a lot of people making songs about 9/11 and Boston bombing? No, they're making songs about this. It's weird. I don't know how to explain it other than it just apparently it seems to be that time.
Like
Anyway,
you said, you'd be willing to talk to somebody.
I'll talk to anybody you want. I haven't turned down an interview yet, and
Let me.
so by all means, if you know anybody, anyone wants to talk to me, I will talk to them because this is what I do. I promote community.
Let, give me 1 second if you don't mind.
Sure.
Cool. So everything's hello.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, everything's fine there. If I can email you if I have more questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Email me anything you want, and if you want a recording of this, it's going to be pretty big. I'll send it through WeTransfer because we're going on 45 minutes. But
Right.
I'll send you anything I want. I think it'll take. If it doesn't, I'll let you know. But I'm pretty sure it will.
What is your official title, if you don't mind me asking?
My official title right now, it will just use author. How about that?
Author. What's
Author.
the
The
name of your
book
book?
the book on Amazon is called Flat Earth Clues. I'm probably one of the only guys I know that have a book out there that I didn't even write.
Somebody else will heard it.
Well, no, it's my words, but it's just my transcripts. I didn't sit down and write a book. I had the publishing company. They called me and said, "Hey, just send us every bit of every script you have from your YouTube videos, and we'll turn it into a book." It's like, all right, so that's what I did. But yeah, Flat Earth Clues. That's what's out there.
And I think that's it.
All right.
Um,
Hey
all right,
man,
I'm
it was.
gonna send you the email asking for the recording audio.
Yeah. Shoot it to me, and I will. Hopefully, again, as long as it processes and the computer doesn't glitch out, I think we're fine. But if you have any follow up questions, just shoot me an email, or or if you want to call me, I'm up in Canada right now. Just let me know when you're going to call, and I'll make sure I'm next to the machine.